So the Dragunity archetype is one of my favorite archetypes in the entire history of Yu-Gi-Oh! I played this deck like crazy back in 2011 when the structure deck first came out. I was one of the only people at my locals that played it, and it was one of the first like decks I had real competitive success with, even if it was still Rogue when it was new. And its competitive viability only got worse after that. But I basically played every different fringe variant of the deck that ever existed from when the structure deck released all the way up until now. I even imported a Japanese copy of the structure deck R Dragunity Drive when that released in late 2020. And then we got those cards in Ghost in the Past because they didn't give us that structure deck over here. And I still play the deck like crazy back then, but unfortunately it just ended up kind of being what most people called a worse Dragon Link, because it still was a build a board, million negates type of thing. And I think I did a deck profile on that version, like the 2021 version back in the day. I don't know if that still exists on this channel or if it was on another channel back then. But I haven't really made that much content about Dragunity in spite of the fact that I love this deck. It's one of my favorite decks of all time. But we got a new wave of support here in the newest Battles of Legend. There was a lot of people saying that the new Battles of Legend is not a very good set, that it doesn't change the competitive landscape very much. And they might be right, but for me personally, I was very, very excited about the set. I was chasing the new Shadal cards and the new Tellarknight cards and just generally opened the dog crap out of that box to pull the new Dragunity cards and all the other awesome reprints that are in there. So how do I feel about this new support? So it creates a very centralized, very streamlined version of the deck that heavily focuses on the new cards, and it cuts out a lot of the superfluous combo pieces that the deck was known for, which also reduces the deck's total choke points and increases the amount of non-engine that it can play. So on the plus side, you do have a crazy powerful end board with a crazy powerful Link 4 boss monster that the deck introduced now. And you can play a ton more non-engine than what you could play before. It is a lot more consistent. There's also generally a one card combo that involves some discards, but it is essentially a one card combo using the new starter. But the downsides is it cuts a lot of the most iconic cards out of the deck in order to streamline it. So unfortunately, in this new iteration, there is no more need for Dragunity Glow, or Dragunity Mistletoe, or Leviathan, or Darkness Metal, or Heretic King of a Tomb, or any of those cards, really. And it really changes the identity of the deck quite a bit in a way that's kind of disappointing to see. So it's partially a good thing because the deck is better and much more streamlined, but it cuts a lot of the most iconic stuff from the deck that we used to know and love and really changes its identity. So I actually took a lot of those cards and put them into a Hall of Fame binder, and I'm kind of playing this more streamlined version of the deck. So how does the deck actually do in the competitive landscape? Better than I thought it would. It's not meta by any means, unfortunately. The end board that it does put up is very, very hard to crack, but it's not layered usually. It's all monster-based interactions. So without the ability to reliably search like the counter trap, you do lose to things like Dark Ruler No More really easily. And then it has very specific choke points in the form of Gay still and Romulus. And popping the field spell mid resolution is a problem. The amount of discards it takes for your combo to go off. And then things like targeted banishment in the graveyard is a huge problem. So things like DD Crow are a huge problem. And then things like Shifter and Defissure, stuff like that really hurts the deck a lot. So there are a lot of cards that are kind of like auto wins against it. And it also has a very bad grind game. So turn 3 and beyond, the deck really struggles. So it struggles against decks that have lingering or repeated forms of interaction like Sky Striker or Branded. So if a deck has like an advantage engine that it occurs over multiple turns where you're not able to kill them on turn 1, and over the next couple of turns they like recuperate cards, or they have guys that float or guys that add something back in the end phase, that type of grind game this deck just cannot sustain through. But I've won, surprisingly, quite a few matches with this, more than I thought I was going to when I first decided to play it. Mostly against rogue stuff. Like I think I beat somebody playing Dark Magician with the new support that just came out in Chaos Origins. I beat somebody playing like a going second Galaxy Eyes deck. Somebody playing Primite Blue Eyes, and somebody playing Ryuji Blue Eyes, which is a version I'd never seen before. I even beat Branded Draco Tail, but I also beat the what is it? The Power Patron FTK by winning the die roll, essentially. But I was not able to beat Cool Tune or Pure Branded, the current iteration of Branded with this. So those are very hard matchups for this, and I think that your chances of beating a deck like Branded or Cool Tune with this are pretty low. But I still think it's really fun. So if you're a big fan of the strategy like I am, it's worth taking up to your locals, and you probably will beat a couple of people, especially other rogue decks. I think it has a pretty good chance against. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So for the best starter in the deck is the new Winged Beast guy, Queerness. So this effect is sort of a combination of Romulus and the new field spell, the Divine Wind, which we'll talk about. So it searches a Dragunity spell or trap on summon, which is actually a little bit more limited than Romulus because it searches either Divine Lance or Divine Wind, or the counter trap. It does not search Dragon Ravine, which is a problem. But the other effect is you can take a Dragunity from your back row, add it to your hand, and then special summon any Dragunity from your hand. Usually that means you're going to be special summoning the same one you add back, but there are situations where you brick on Koos and you need to get that guy out of your hand, and this is a way to do that. So it is technically a one-card combo, whereas the other main deck Winged Beast guys require either a mandatory discard or some kind of setup. So it is slightly better than Senatus, because this guy equips Divine Lance from deck, then Divine Lance equips a Dragunity to him from the deck, whereas with Senatus, you have to discard a card to get an equip from deck. So this is a little bit better than Senatus. And then Dux requires, obviously, a Dragunity tuner already in the graveyard. So Queerness does power creep the other main deck Winged Beast starters a little bit, although I'm sure those cards do have their utility still. This one is strictly better than those for how it works with the new combo. So you want to try to open this guy as quickly as possible, which is pretty easy to do because he is searchable off of Ravine. You could even Small World for this guy if you really, really want to. I've seen some people playing Small World. I do not play Small World because, to me, you discard so much off of Ravine that you cannot afford to go minus like that in this deck, and Small World is a -1 in order to search basically anything, so that I don't think it's that practical in this deck. But yeah, 3 Queerness for sure. Very, very strong card. We're playing 2 of Legatus now, and you could play more, but you definitely want to have at least 1 copy live in your deck. You search 1 as part of your combo. It's an extender that is required to finish your end board, but you definitely want to see another one in your deck for turn 3 and beyond, because you need something else to search off of Ravine that will get you back into the game if your board gets broken. And then similarly, I'm actually playing 1 Dux. So I was going back and forth on this, and there was basically 1 slot that I couldn't quite figure out what I wanted to put in here. And I was playing Grom, the level 10 main deck, the Leviathan Retrain from the structure deck, our Wave of Support, the 2021 Ghost in the Past support. And the cool thing about him is he's incredibly easy to summon. He pushes into boards really well because he can negate monsters. He has a huge amount of attack. And your opponent usually has no idea what that card does. So if you want to play Grom, it does have some uses where it will bait out your opponent's interactions going second, because your opponent doesn't know what it does. They don't know how powerful it is. It summons itself like a Dragon Ruler. And you can even banish like Fuelos to summon it, because Fuelos is a Winged Beast. But ultimately, I ended up bricking on that card a number of times. So there were hands that I opened that was like Divine Wind, Grom, and 3 hand traps, and that hand does nothing. So I wanted to have a card that does something, again, turn 3 and beyond if I have already cards in the graveyard. So this is a normal summon that does something if I already have like Phalanx or Koos in the graveyard. And is just something that's going to allow me to push into a board that I can search off of Ravine with minimal cards invested in that combo. So I think that's a good option. It's probably not the most ideal. You could just play 3 of Legatus, but I'm going with this package for now, and it's been working quite a bit than playing Grom in that spot. So I do kind of stand by that. We are playing 3 of Remus. I thought I pulled a 3rd secret rare. I did not. And the rest of my ultra rares are in that Hall of Fame binder I talked about. So Remus is critical to this deck. He searches Ravine. He boosts the consistency of the deck tremendously. He's also an extender. He's basically required as part of your combo. Card is insane. Has been one of the best Dragunity cards in the deck ever since the 2021 wave of support. Next, we're also playing 3 of the new tuner, the Falchion. So I've seen some people play 2 of this, and I've seen some people play 3 of it. I'm playing 3 for now. We'll see how I feel about that. But basically, playing 3 of this lets you play 1 copy of the other tuners, and we'll talk about it, because this basically lets you trade itself for any other equip that you want. You can send to the graveyard to equip any other Dragunity tuner to the monster that you want. And that is going to be extremely important for getting the combo we want to get to. And it also has an effect that's good for pushing into a board. While it's equipped, you can send it to the graveyard from the back row to banish a monster your opponent controls. So if you're trying to go second, your opponent may see that and absolutely freak out, and it'll force out one of their interactions. So that's a really cool thing about this guy. And I'm okay with that package right now, the 3 of these. And then, of course, it is 1 Phalanx and 1 Koos. So the interesting thing is that I almost thought about playing 2 Koos, because there are certain lines where you need to have Koos in the deck. And if you hard open Koos, he is one of the only hard garnets in this deck. There are sometimes ways around it, because sometimes you can pivot what your guy is equipped to with Falchion, because Falchion lets you re-equip. If you send it to the graveyard from being equipped, you can equip a Dragunity from the deck or graveyard to the monster you control. So if you need to pivot and have Koos on the Wing Beast guy, Falchion does let you do that, but a lot of times you don't want to use that effect on that interaction. But if Koos is in your hand, it's really, really awkward. So hopefully you're pitching it off of Ravine or something like that, or you have a way to, let's say you return, with the effect of Queerness, you search Divine Lance, equip Divine Lance, equip Remus from the deck, and then bounce Remus back to hand and special this guy out of your hand to do your first Synchro or Link Summon. And that's a way to kind of unbrick on this guy. But yeah, having him in your hand is really bad for the way the combo works. And there were some times where I couldn't do my full combo just because of a really, really awkward setup. I don't think that is enough incentive for me to bump this guy up to 2, but it is sort of a hard garnet because of how the combo works. So I'll talk about that when we get to it. And then Phalanx is the more versatile of the 2 tuners. So Koos is mandatory for making Barcha, and Phalanx is the more flexible one that makes all of the other synchros we want to make. And then we still play Zephyros. Zephyros is still really good at bouncing Ravine and Divine Wind as well. And it's a Wing Beast body. The only thing about this is it is a dark, so it does conflict with Dominus Purge. So I guess keep that in mind. So if you are playing Dominus Purge, maybe you want to think about when you activate it related to this guy's effect, or set it if you are going first as a point of interaction on your opponent's turn. But we'll talk about that when we get to Dominus Purge. And then the last combo engine main deck requirement piece is Kawaki Mirror Drago. We summon this off of the spheres, and it locks out several decks. I think the Blue Eyes Ryuji player, I basically convinced him, I was like, you have to scoop. You have no out to this card, because all his Blue Eyes were light and all his Ryujis were dark. And he didn't have a way to beat over it, because we have Hope Harbinger in the field, which directs all attacks towards him. So he basically couldn't out this guy. And I was like, dude, you gotta scoop. There's nothing you can do about this. I'll talk about the hand traps when we get to... I'm just going to show all the engine first and show all the non-engine last. So 3 Ravine, it's as good as it's always been. Fixes any of your hands, fixes any of your combos, etc. Lets you get access to everything from your deck. The discard is a little bit unfortunate because you do have to pay for the discard twice to do your combo from just Queerness, but it's fine. And we also are playing 3 Divine Winds. I've also seen decks play fewer Divine Wind. I've seen decks play 2. I've seen decks play 1. And the reason we're playing 3 is that in the event that we get hand trapped on Queerness or on Gaydiarg or on Romulus, it doesn't hurt to hard open this card to be able to just extend with it. Really, at the end of the day, that's all there is to it. So, and in the effect that any of those, in the event that any of those effects get negated, you do want the option to be able to just play this card right from your hand, in case you can't search it. So I think it's good enough to play the 3. I think the combination of these 2 cards is awesome, and it's what really enables the main strategy with this deck. So we're doing 3 and 3. We're also doing only 1 Divine Lance. You search this off the normal summon Aquarius, and you equip either Falchion or Remus to it. With Falchion, you can then equip like Phalanx to him, and then do make a synchro that way. Or with Remus, you can use Queerness's effect to bounce the Remus from the field back to your hand, and then special it or discard it for Ravine, depending on what you have in your hand. So this basically lets us fix our hand, search anything we're missing, whether it be Remus, Falchion, whatever. Lets us get to Ravine, regardless of the fact that Queerness cannot search Ravine on his own. And basically means that in a roundabout way, Queerness gets us to any of these cards. But technically, as Queerness is printed, he can only search a Dragunity spell trap, which is these 2, and the counter trap, which we'll talk about. So that's it for the engine requirements. The rest is all non-engine, which is like probably more than half the deck. So we're playing a ton of hand traps. So we are playing 3 Ash, 3 Fua, 3 Bell, 2 Droll, 3 Imperm, and 2 Dominus Purge. And the list ends up being 42 cards with Dominus Purge in here, I realize. So maybe I would just cut these. But they would be good to side out if I was going second in game 2, because I want Zephyros and Striker or Pisty to be able to be activated. And there are Darks. But other than that, there's no conflict with Dominus Purge. So maybe you'd want to play like fewer Bells in 3 of these, or any combination like that. But I think this has been fine for the most part. Again, really all I need is either Remus, Queerness, or Ravine, and any combination of those cards gets me to the other, etc. So the rest of my hand can be hand traps and other non-engine, and I think it works. I've been perfectly fine with those ratios. Again, the Fualos being a wing beast kind of helps with some of the synchro summoning if you're super desperate. If you're playing Small World, Droll is a pretty good Small World bridge because it is a wind, but it is not a spellcaster. Its level is different from any of the levels of any of the Dragunity cards, and so it is its stat line. So Droll is a fantastic Small World bridge if you are going that route, which again I don't really recommend. And then when we're going first in game 2 or 3, the Fualoses are coming out for something like Thrust. And then the last 3 main deck cards, non-engine, are these 3, which are, of course, one of staples that pretty much every deck should play. I'm maining Crossout to hit Droll, Fua, Ash, any of that non-engine that I'm maining. Bell is also really, really, really powerful against this deck, so hitting Bell is pretty important, I feel like. This deck doesn't really lose to Nibiru. Your main combo is Nibiru-proof pretty early, which I'll talk about, but yeah, I definitely want to be able to cross out those powerful turn-ending hand traps. Imperm on the normal summon of Queerness can sometimes end your turn if you don't already have a way to access Ravine. So having cross out for that's pretty important. You already know how powerful Call by the Grave and Talents are in combo deck, so I don't have to explain that. But I want the Talents in the main so that I can just side in thrusts if I'm going first, and it's game 2 or 3, and I want to side out those Fuas. So, yep. That's it for the main deck. So onto the extra deck, we're playing quite a few Link monsters. So we have the Link 1s of Striker Dragon and Pisty. These are required for your end board, which I'll talk about. We have no target for Striker Dragon, obviously, but we do use Pisty's effect. Alternatively, you could also play Triple Burst Dragon, but I like this arrangement a little bit more. We are not playing Triple Burst Dragon, even though I thought about it in the early iterations of deck building this. We are playing Romulus, of course, because it is Dragunity. Most people know this guy from Dragon Link, where he can only search Ravine, but you can search any Dragunity spell trap with this guy. So if you there's times where he searches Divine Wind, and your opponent's like, "Whoa, I didn't know he could do that." He absolutely can do that. So mandatory card in this deck, obviously. And then Spheres is mandatory for the end board. It's still an incredibly powerful card all these years later. And being able to summon Quackimero Drago does lock out quite a few decks. And then lastly, we have the new Link 4 boss monster, the Dragunity Lord Gorgeous. So the ice barrier guy gets to ride on Ascalon there. So really interesting card. I don't necessarily love this as a direction that the deck is going in, but I can't deny that it is pretty powerful, and it does kind of auto-win against certain decks. So it does a lot. While it is equipped with a card, it is a floodgate. It's basically Abyss Dweller, where your opponent cannot activate the effects of cards in the graveyard. And it also can send a card equipped to it to the graveyard to negate a spell or trap. And finally, either when he is link summoned or when your opponent special summons a monster, you can special summon a Dragunity Synchro from your extra deck as a Synchro summon. So the way that we take advantage of that is on his summon, when he comes out, he specials Luin from the extra deck, and then that becomes equipped to him, and that's how he gets his equip for his Floodgate and Spell and Trap Negate. And then when your opponent tries to combo off, you just summon something like Eredvar, and that is what gives you an extra form of disruption on your end board. So crazy powerful. The Graveyard Floodgate has not been as powerful as I thought it would be, as I thought it would be playing this, because I've had to shut off the Floodgate in order to use the Spell and Trap Negate pretty often. But that usually is worth it. There's some decks where I just leave, I let the spells and traps resolve because I know they can't do anything as long as I have that Floodgate up, but other decks it's the other way around. So he is kind of a build around for this new version of the deck, as much as I don't like that that's the direction the deck has gone. We're still playing Gay Diarg. This is still my original first edition secret rare from Star Strike Blast back in the day, a card I've been playing literally for 15 years straight, and I couldn't be happier about it. This card is still crazy that it's not a once per turn. But we don't recycle this guy and use his effect like 3 or 4 times in the combo anymore, like we used to with the different variants of this deck. But he is still important for getting our combo started for sure. I'm also playing Vadriana. So my super rare Vadrianas are in the Hall of Fame binder, but I wanted to play as many secret rare cards as possible for this deck. Vadriana is just a card that we can use with Ducks if it is turn 3 and beyond, to make either the new level 8, the Arius, or to make the level 10s, Eredvar and Ascalon, using Ducks and either Phalanx or Koos. So I think it is worth the extra deck spot for that, to actually have something to do, to go second into a board, especially if you had your board broken and it's turn 3 and you need to now crack back from that. Luin is mandatory for the Gorgeous play, like I talked about. You need to be able to equip this guy to him, and that's pretty easy to do. I'll show how it's done in the combo. Barcha is also mandatory for our end board. Barcha is super easy to make and crazy powerful in this deck, being able to equip as many Dragon-type Dragunities as possible to him from the graveyard, which gives you access to a bunch more Link material because he summons all the tuners back, and also lets you make Snake Eyes Doomed Dragon? Yeah, Snake Eyes Doomed Dragon by sending 2 monsters in your back row that are equipped to him to the graveyard. And you need Koos to make this guy because he does require a non-tuner Wing Beast, which means you need to usually make him with a 4 and a 4. You can't make him with Vadriana because that's a dragon. So a little bit harder to make, but Koos circumvents that problem very easily. We are playing the new Arius. It does have the ability to negate cards equal to the amount of equipped cards on the field. I've rarely used this, actually. I do think it's strong, but I've rarely taken advantage of it yet. This is one of the guys you would either summon off of Gorgeous's effect, or you would make, again, going second in game in turn 3 and beyond. And then we do have, of course, both of the level 10s. We have the Eredvar and Ascalon. Eredvar is good going first because it is another monster negate, and it's also a negate and banish, which is crazy strong. He also has a whopping 3,300 attack. And then Ascalon also has 3,300 attack, and is almost like Access Code Talker, where you can banish a Dragunity from your graveyard to banish a monster your opponent controls. And you can do that for as many times as you have material in the graveyard. So if your opponent has 3 monsters and you have 3 Dragunities engraved to banish them all, wipe your opponent's entire field. So a little bit of a slightly worse Access Code Talker there. He also floats, but that rarely comes up. But yeah, these guys are really good. Generally, we only make this one if we're trying to go for game, whereas this one comes out via the effect of Gorgeous almost every time. And then our generic extra deck monsters is Crystal Wing. We don't have Warlord Savage Dragon anymore because it got banned a long time ago, but we still have Crystal Wing, which goes crazy in this deck. It's super easy to make. It's wind attribute. It doesn't conflict with any of the dominance cards or anything like that. And this makes our starting combo Nibiru proof. And then last we have Snake Eyes Doomed Dragon and Hope Harbinger. So when you make Barcha, the materials that equip to Barcha allow you to make this guy for free, and then you overlay this guy and Barcha for Hope Harbinger, which gives you another spell negate and lets you redirect attacks away from Kwakimaru Drago. So I think that's pretty good as part of an end board. Side deck is kind of thrown together, I won't lie. This is very much tailored to my specific locals. So this is probably not optimal by any means, but there is something worth talking about in here, which I'll get to. But we're playing 3 Lancia for a couple people at my locals that are still like pet decking Malice after all this time. So if I get matched up against them, I definitely want the Lancia in there. We can, if our opponent is going first and we Lancia them, it's not as bad when it comes back around to our turn. We're only playing 2 Nibiru because I do want to be able to draw into this off of Fua if I'm going second, and there are, again, certain rogue decks and pet decks that come up at my locals that do lose to this, so I want to at least have the option. We are playing a fair amount of board breakers, so I'm playing 2 Lightning Storm, 1 Feather Duster, and 3 Thrust. Some combination of these come in if we're going second, or if I'm going first in game 2 or 3, then I side out the Fuas for the thrusts and try to... It might be like side out the Fuas for 2 thrusts and for the Dragunity counter trap, so that I can thrust for talents or whatever, and that way the Fua is on a dead card in my hand if I'm going first. And then this card is really important, so we side this in if we are going first in game 3, and this helps us against board breakers. So it's a Dragunity counter trap that lets you just an Omni negate. It's just an Omni negate, and it's hard to get into normally as part of the combo. You're not guaranteed to see it, but if you're not worried to losing, you kind of can play based on how many interactions your opponent has or how often they hand trap you during your combo. Because if you already have Divine Wind into your hand, or let's say you hard open Divine Lance and you normal summon Queerness, you can just search this guy right away. Or if you already have Divine Wind or Ravine and you make Romulus, you can search this off of Romulus. You still need to make Romulus as part of your combo regardless, just for link material. So this is one of the only cards that makes your end board layered, but it's still not super easy to weave into your end board combo. So it is one of the reasons why the deck is still pretty fragile, because the deck's end board is not layered like we talked about. And then the last side deck card is just Evenly Matched, which did come up quite a bit, just as good as it's ever been. So yeah, that's basically the side deck. It's kind of haphazardly thrown together. Okay, so for the combo we're going to be showing off, it is basically a 1-card combo with Queerness, but it does require a couple of discards off of Ravine. So that's why we're playing as much non-engine as we're playing. So the first thing we're going to do is normal summon out Queerness and search Dragunity Divine Lance. We'll go ahead and equip it to Queerness and search from deck Remus to equip him with. And then we'll use the other effect of Queerness to add Remus from our field back to our hand, and we will not be special summoning it. So we could special summon it here, but this is going to be an anti-Nibiru combo, so I'm going to show exactly how to do that. So we add Remus from the back row to our hand with Queerness's effect, and then we discard the Remus with its own effect to search Ravine. We'll go ahead and activate Ravine here, and we will use the graveyard effect of Remus because we control Ravine to special summon it back, and now we can Synchro 6 for Gay Diarg. Gay Diarg on summon will do the thing he's known best for doing, which is searching Zephyros and immediately discarding it. Then we will activate Ravine, discarding one of our random cards to search out Falchion. We're just going to send that sucker right to the graveyard with the second effect of Ravine. We'll go ahead and use its effect, banishing it from the graveyard to equip Gay Diarg from deck with Phalanx. And now that Phalanx is equipped to Gay Diarg, it can be special summoned. So we can now Synchro for 8 here with a Synchro monster for Crystal Wing. And now we are Nibiru proof. And also, this checks a bunch of other potential interactions and things that would stop our combo. So from here, we can we're protected. We're good to go from monster-based interactions. We can go ahead and use the graveyard effect of Zephyros. We can bounce the Ravine from our field back to our hand to special summon him and take 400 burn damage. And then we can activate the Ravine again, discarding our other random card in hand to search out Legatus. And because we control Ravine, we can go ahead and special summon out the Legatus, and we can link with two winged beasts for Romulus. And you may be like, oh, I forgot you could do that. Yeah, Romulus can be made with winged beasts only instead of just dragons like we're used to with Dragon Link. On summon, Romulus is going to add Divine Wind. And we will go ahead and activate Divine Wind over Ravine, which allows us to activate both of the effects of Divine Wind without activating both effects of Divine Wind in sequence. So this effect is sort of a hybrid effect of Queerness's on-field effect, and it's pretty good. So what we do is we take a Dragunity monster from our graveyard and add it to our hand, and then we can special summon one from our hand. So we're going to be special summoning out the same Queerness that we just added back. You can also do this with Legatus. It just has to be level 4 winged beast, and then we use the other effect to equip him from deck with a Dragunity tuner. And this is why we needed Koos in deck. But again, if we didn't have to use Falchion's effect the way that we did, we could get around this. But this is why I was saying that Koos can sometimes be a hard garnet. So because Koos is equipped, he can be special summoned. And for the Synchro Summon of a Dragunity Synchro monster, he can be treated as a level 4. And you can only summon Dragunities with him, which is why we had to use Phalanx for Crystal Wing and him for Barcha. It's very specific the way we're doing it here. So we're going to Synchro 8 for Barcha. And then on summon, Barcha is going to equip as many Dragon-type Dragunities to him as possible from the graveyard. So he's going to equip Koos, Phalanx, Gay Diarg, and Remus. We use the effect of Phalanx to special summon it. We use the effect of Koos to special summon it. Next, we will take both of the other two back row monsters, the Remus and the Gay Diarg, and we can actually do a fusion summon with them for the Snake Eyes Doomed Dragon. And again, you're only locked into dragons for this combo. You're not locked into synchros or anything like that. So we can still do these Xyz and Link monsters. So Snake Eyes Doomed Dragon and Barcha will go ahead and overlay for Hope Harbinger to make space. Now we have a Spell Negate, which is really funny to see his materials is a synchro and a fusion. I think it's really funny. Next, we can link with Phalanx into Pisty over here. Sorry, these zones are a little bit awkward with trying to get everything on camera here. Link Koos off for Striker Dragon, and now both Striker Dragon and Pisty point to the same zone, so we can summon the Koos or Phalanx back to the zone, doesn't matter. And then we can go ahead and link 4 in the zone that Pisty is pointing to for our boss monster, Gorgeous. And on summon, Gorgeous is going to special summon Luin out of the extra deck. It can go into the EMZ, it doesn't really matter. And then from here, we will link 2 with the Luin and the Pisty for Spheres, which will go in the EMZ. And then when Luin is sent to the graveyard, his effect will activate and he will equip himself to Gorgeous. And this is our end board. Again, just the one card with the 2 discards. And what we have here is, of course, a monster negate, a spell and trap negate, and a graveyard floodgate. And the Heavenly Spheres, which contribute itself to bounce a card in the field and summon a floodgate from the deck in the form of Quackimira Drago. And then when our opponent tries to play, the Gorgeous will trigger and special summon out of the deck, out of the extra deck, another monster negate. So either Eredvar or Arius, doesn't matter. But this is crazy strong and very, very hard to pop. But again, it does lose to Dark Ruler no more, which is why, like I said, if you had access to Ravine or Divine Wind, you would want to search the counter trap if you cited that in, and then have some other way to play around Dark Ruler and stuff like that. So this deck is terrible against Branded, as you might expect, because your opponent can just set Fallen of Albaz and suck up this entire board. And there's not really a good way to play around that. So unless we do, like, I don't know, Prohibition call Fallen of Albaz, or like Sales Ban call Fallen of Albaz is really the only way I can think of to play around that. But regardless, hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm definitely going to be playing this deck a lot more over the coming months, just as a fun rogue strategy. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next time.